The afternoon was calm, almost too calm for a town where nothing dramatic ever happened. The sun hung low, warming the quiet streets and shining through the large glass windows of Harper's Diner. It was the kind of place where time moved slowly, where the same people came every day, where everyone believed they already knew every story that existed in their town. But today, something felt different. The bell over the door chimed softly as a silent, elderly man walked in. His steps were steady, not rushed, not weak, just controlled, like someone who had spent his whole life moving with purpose. His hair was silver, his face marked with years of memories, not just age. He did not smile, yet he did not look unfriendly. He simply looked like a man who had seen more than he ever needed to say. His name was Mr. Dalton, but nobody in the diner knew that yet. He wore a simple blue shirt, clean but old, with the sleeves rolled just above his elbows. On the collar, a tiny military pin glimmered when the sunlight touched it. Most people would not notice something so small, but those who did would understand that it meant something earned, not given. He walked to the counter without making a sound. Even the floor seemed to respect him. He sat down slowly, placed his hands on the counter and waited. Not for service, not for attention, just for silence. The waitress Lily noticed him first. She was young, maybe in her 20s, with a warm voice and tired eyes from working long shifts. She gave him a polite smile. "Good afternoon, sir." "Coffee?" He nodded once. No fuss. No talking. Just stillness. Lily poured the coffee, and Mr. Dalton wrapped his hands around the warm mug. He didn't drink right away. Instead, he looked around the diner, scanning the room not in curiosity, but with the quiet awareness of someone who always knew where every exit and every danger was. It was a habit that never left him. A few people noticed him, but not for long. To them, he was just another old man. Someone alone. Someone ordinary. But one person stared. Longer, a little girl sitting 2 seats away. She looked no older than 8 or 9. Bright eyes and a yellow sweater. She swung her feet under the stool, too short to touch the floor. She watched Mr. Dalton the way children watch things they cannot explain without fear. But with deep curiosity, Mr. Dalton did not look at her, but he knew she was watching. He could feel it. He had learned long ago that sometimes silence attracted more attention than words ever could. Outside, the wind pushed a few dry leaves across the parking lot. The light changed, shifting shadows across the floor tiles, like moving patterns. Everything seemed normal, but the girl suddenly whispered, her voice soft and shaking. "Sir, please help her." Mr. Dalton did not turn his head. Not yet. He blinked once, slowly, like a man who never reacted quickly unless he needed to. The girl swallowed hard. Her hands trembled in her lap. "She needs help," she repeated, barely louder than a breath. Mr. Dalton finally shifted his eyes not to the girl, but toward the back of the diner. That was when he noticed it at first. It looked like nothing, just a tall man in a dark suit speaking to Lily near the service station. But something was wrong. The man stood too close. His hand gripped her wrist tightly, his fingers pressing into her skin. Lily tried to smile, but her face was tense, her body stiff. Mr. Dalton watched without blinking. He did not panic. He did not rush. His heartbeat stayed calm, the way it always had in situations where others would fear. The man in the suit leaned closer to Lily, speaking in a low, angry voice. She shook her head, trying to pull away. Her eyes darted around the diner, searching for someone who would step in, but no one moved. Customers lowered their heads. Others pretended to read menus. Their faces were filled with discomfort, but not courage. To them, it was not their problem. To Mr. Dalton, silence was never an excuse. The little girl tugged the edge of her yellow sweater, her voice breaking. "Sir, please, please help her." For a moment, the diner felt colder. The air grew heavier, like the world was holding its breath. "Waiting," Mr. Dalton set his coffee cup down gently. Not fast, not loud, just final. His eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in recognition. He had seen men like the one in the suit before. Men who believed strength came from fear. Men who thought power came from being the loudest in the room. He knew better. Strength was quiet. Power was controlled. He placed both feet flat on the floor and straightened his back. The movement was simple, but it felt like the ground shifted beneath him. The girl's eyes widened, sensing something she could not explain. Mr. Dalton stood up slowly. Every muscle moved with purpose, not age. Across the diner, the man in the suit suddenly looked over and laughed loudly. "What's this?" he said, smirking. "The old man thinks he's a hero?" A few customers chuckled nervously, unsure which side to choose, but Mr. Dalton didn't speak. He just stared at the man with calm, unshaken eyes, the kind of eyes that made loud men feel small. Lily tried to pull her wrist free again, but the man tightened his grip. "Mind your own business," snapped. But Mr. Dalton did not stop walking. The girl held her breath. The diner fell silent. Forks paused midair. Conversations died. Even the old ceiling fan seemed to slow down. Mr. Dalton reached the center of the diner and finally spoke. His voice firm but quiet. "That's enough." 2 words. No threat, no shouting, just certainty. The man in the suit hesitated not because of the words, but because of the way they were spoken. Calm voices were dangerous. Calm voices belonged to men who did not bluff. Before the man could respond, the front door of the diner swung open. The bell rang louder this time. Everyone turned. A man in a Navy uniform stepped inside, confident and carrying an authority that filled the room instantly. His rank was high. His presence was undeniable. But the most shocking moment was not his entrance. It was the look on his face. Because the Navy officer was not looking at the man in the suit, he was looking directly at Mr. Dalton, as if he already knew him, as if he had been searching for him, and then, without hesitation, he spoke the words that froze the entire diner. "Sir, is that really you?" The room went silent. The story had only just begun. The diner was frozen in silence, as if every sound had been pulled out of the room. Even the coffee machine stopped hissing, like it understood something serious was happening. The customer stared at the man in the Navy uniform, unsure what to expect next. He was tall, with sharp eyes and a chest full of medals that caught the light. His presence felt heavy, not in a frightening way, but like someone who carried the weight of command wherever he went. People who had never met a real officer suddenly sat up straighter, as if their bodies reacted before their minds did, but he wasn't focused on them. His eyes stayed locked on Mr. Dalton. The rude man in the suit lowered his hand from Lily's wrist, confused and irritated. "What is this?" he muttered, trying to laugh. "You know, this old guy or something?" But the officer didn't even look at him. He took one slow step forward, then another. Lily stepped back, freeing her arm completely. The red marks on her skin showed how tightly she had been held. She rubbed her wrist gently, still shaking, but her eyes followed the officer. Mr. Dalton did not move. He stood exactly where he was, calm and unreadable, like a statue made of bone and memory. The little girl watched everything with wide, unblinking eyes. She didn't speak. She didn't even breathe loudly. It was as if she somehow knew this moment was important. Even if she didn't understand why, the officer stopped a few feet away. "Sir, I thought you were gone," he said quietly. There was no dramatic music. No gasp from the room, just pure surprise that carried more weight than shouting ever could. A whisper spread across the diner like a slow wave. "Does he know him? Who is that old man? What's happening?" But Mr. Dalton gave no reaction. His expression stayed calm, almost empty, but there was something in his eyes, something like recognition, buried deep beneath years of silence. The rude man rolled his eyes. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "I'm trying to have a private conversation here." He reached toward Lily again. That was his mistake, because Mr. Dalton moved not fast, not aggressive, just enough to place himself between them. A shield without saying a word. The officer's voice turned cold. "Take your hand off her," said the man in the suit. Finally noticed the medals, the rank, the authority. His confidence cracked a little. "And who exactly are you supposed to be?" he asked, trying to sound tough. The officer didn't need to answer. Someone from the back booth whispered, loudly enough for others to hear, "He's a Navy admiral." The room shifted. Instantly, forks hit plates. A woman gasped. Someone stood up without. "Meaning two? One word changed everything, Admiral?" "Not just a sailor, not just an officer." "Leader of leaders?" The rude man swallowed hard, but tried to keep up his act. "What does that matter? This old man started it." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "You're mistaken," he said. "If he stepped forward, you caused it."
Oh, no shouting.
"You caused it."
Oh, no shouting.
Just truth. The rude man looked around, expecting support, but everyone avoided his eyes. People who ignored Lily before now pretended they cared. He scoffed and tried to leave. But the Admiral spoke again. "You're not going anywhere." The man froze. Even Mr. Dalton finally looked at the Admiral, just for a second, as if wondering what he planned to do next. The Admiral took a breath and continued, but his voice softened. "I've been looking for this man for years," he said. Lily's shaking stopped. The girl leaned forward. Every customer listened like the world outside no longer existed. The rude man blinked. "What? This old guy?" he said, his voice cracking slightly. The Admiral nodded. "This old guy is the reason I'm standing here today." A stunned silence spread through the diner. Someone whispered, "What does that mean?" The Admiral didn't explain yet. He wasn't ready, not for strangers, not for the whole room. Instead, he gently approached Lily. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly, still processing everything, but the little girl finally spoke. Her voice small, but filled with relief. "I told him you would come," she said. Everyone turned toward her, but she didn't say anything else. She simply folded her hands in her lap, as if her part was already done. Mr. Dalton studied the girl for a brief moment. Something about her didn't fit the scene, not her calmness, not her timing. It was as if she appeared exactly when she needed to. The Admiral faced the rude man again. "You need to apologize," he said. The man hesitated. To her, the Admiral added, nodding at Lily. Lily's face went pale. The rude man opened his mouth, but no words came out. His arrogance had drained away, leaving only discomfort and embarrassment. But before he could speak, the diner door opened again. This time, it wasn't dramatic, just a simple entrance. A group of 3 older men walked in laughing, talking loudly, unaware of the tension. They stopped as soon as they saw the scene. Their eyes shifted from the Admiral to Mr. Dalton, and their expressions changed completely. One of them dropped his cane. "Dalton," he whispered. The room reacted again. More surprise, more mystery. Who was this man that everyone seemed to recognize? The Admiral nodded respectfully to the newcomers. "You served with him, didn't you?" he asked. The oldest of the 3 nodded slowly. "We didn't serve with him," he said. "We served under him." The rude man's face lost all color. Lily covered her mouth. Someone whispered, "He was a commander?" But the older man shook his head. "No," he said softly. "He was more than that." The Admiral didn't interrupt. He wanted Mr. Dalton to speak. He wanted the truth to come from the man himself. But Mr. Dalton simply picked up his coffee cup again. His hand didn't shake. His breathing stayed steady. He took a small sip, like nothing unusual was happening around him. People stared at him with awe, waiting for any sign, any word. But the silence made him even more powerful. The rude man finally broke. I didn't know," he stammered. "I didn't mean anything." Mr. Dalton didn't respond. He didn't need to. The shame was already done. Lily stepped closer, her voice gentle. "Sir." "Thank you," she whispered. For the first time since he entered the diner, Mr. Dalton gave a small nod. Not a smile, just a simple acknowledgement. It was enough. Then the Admiral spoke, his voice firm but respectful. "Sir, please," he said. "We need to talk. Outside." The room waited, breath held. Mr. Dalton set down his cup, slowly stood, and without a single word. He followed the Admiral toward the door. The entire diner watched them leave, knowing one thing with absolute certainty. This old man was not ordinary, and whatever happened next was only the beginning. The wind outside was colder than before, even though the sky was still bright. When the diner door closed behind Mr. Dalton and the Admiral, the people inside felt like the world had split into everything normal stayed inside, and everything unknown waited outside. Lily stood near the counter, holding her wrist gently. The red marks were beginning to fade, but the fear was still there, sitting in her chest like a heavy stone. She watched through the window as Mr. Dalton and the Admiral walked toward the parking lot. The rude man in the suit sat back down slowly, pretending nothing had happened, but the room no longer feared him. He was nothing now, just noise that had lost its power. The little girl remained seated, her yellow sweater glowing softly in the sunlight. She was calm again, as if the worst was already over. But she kept her eyes fixed on Mr. Dalton, like she knew his story wasn't finished. Outside, Mr. Dalton stopped near the shadow of a tall oak tree. The Admiral stood in front of him, not too close, not too far, keeping a respectful distance. The way a soldier approaches a man he once saluted. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The wind moved through the leaves, brushing the ground with a faint whisper. A car passed in the distance. Life outside continued, unaware of the history, standing silently beneath a tree. Finally, the Admiral exhaled. "Sir, I never thought I would see you again." His voice was softer than inside the diner, not full of authority, but full of memory. Mr. Dalton didn't respond. His eyes were steady, watching the Admiral the way a man watches someone searching for words that matter. The Admiral looked down for a moment, gathering himself. "My name is Admiral Ross," he said, though they both knew introductions were unnecessary. "I was a young officer when you saved us." There was no dramatic music, no reaction from Mr. Dalton, just a slow blink, like a man whose mind was somewhere far away. The Admiral continued. "We were stranded for 3 days. No food, no communication. We were sure we wouldn't make it." His voice shook not with fear, but with respect that had been waiting years to be spoken. "You walked through enemy lines alone," he said. "You brought us back." Inside the diner, the customers watched through the glass, unable to hear, but unable to look away. It felt like watching history happen in real time. The older men who had entered earlier stood near the window, their faces pale with memory. "He shouldn't even be here," one whispered. Another nodded. "We all thought he died that night, like outside." Mr. Dalton finally spoke, but only 2 words. It was duty. Not pride, not emotion, just truth. Admiral Ross shook his head slowly. "It was more than duty," he said. "You stayed behind so we could escape." A shadow crossed Dalton's face, not of fear, but of a memory that had never left him. Ross's voice lowered. "You never returned after that mission. The reports said you were missing. Some believed you were gone forever." Dalton looked away, not because he was hiding, but because some memories belonged to silence. Ross took a careful step closer. "Where did you go?" he asked. Dalton did not answer immediately. His jaw tightened slightly. It's like a man choosing which pieces of the past were still allowed to exist. "I didn't belong there anymore," he finally said. Ross nodded slowly, understanding what most people never could. Some heroes didn't return to be celebrated. Some returned to disappear. A car door slammed across the parking lot, breaking the moment. A teenager ran toward the convenience store, unaware he had interrupted something sacred. Ross took a steady breath. "Sir, the Navy never forgot you," he said. "We carried your name for years. We honored your service even without you." Dalton remained still. Names never mattered to him. Actions did. Ross hesitated before speaking again. "There's more," he said. "Someone has been looking for you." Dalton's eyes narrowed, not in fear, but in silent warning. "Who?" Before Ross could answer, the diner door opened and Lily stepped outside, wiping her hands nervously on her apron. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice shaky. "I just wanted to thank you." Dalton turned slightly toward her. "You're safe," he said. Just 2 words again. Simple. Final. Lily smiled weakly, but her eyes were full of emotion. Nobody else stood up, she said quietly. Not until you did. Ross glanced at Lily, then back at Dalton. That's who he's always been, Ross said. A quiet man who steps in when others don't. Dalton didn't respond. He didn't need to. Lily looked down at her wrist. When he grabbed me, I didn't know what to do. Ross nodded. You don't need to feel ashamed, he said. People freeze. Fear does that. But Lily shook her head. I wasn't scared for myself, she said. I was scared for someone else. Ross frowned slightly. Who? Lily hesitated. The little girl, she whispered. She saw everything.
Tense.
Eyes shifted sharply. She spoke to me. He said. Lily nodded. I didn't even know. She was here until she came to the counter. Ow. Ross looked back. Toward the diner window, but the girl was gone. Only the empty stool remained. Lily gasped. She was right. They're right behind the glass. I swear she was. Dalton didn't move. Ross scanned the parking lot. No yellow sweater, no small footsteps, just silence. Maybe she left with someone. But her voice didn't sound convinced. Dalton finally spoke, his voice low. She appeared before the trouble started. Ross turned to him. You think she knew? Dalton didn't answer, because some questions weren't meant to be solved yet. Lily wrapped her arms around herself as a cold wind blew past. Is everything going to be okay? She asked. Dalton looked at her, his expression calm but unreadable. It's not finished, said Ross, swallowed. What do you mean? Dalton stepped away from the tree, his footsteps slow, steady. The man inside wasn't acting alone. Ross's heartbeat changed. How do you know? Dalton looked toward the road, as if expecting someone or something, because trouble never arrives by itself. He said Ross felt the truth in those words. Lily shivered inside the diner. People continued watching, unaware that part 2 of the danger had already started forming. Ross took a deep breath. Sir, what do we do now? Dalton's answer was simple. We wait, not with fear, but with readiness. Because the silence had returned, and silence was never empty. It was a warning, a beginning, in the real storm. Was still on its way. The parking lot stayed quiet for a long moment. The wind moved gently across the ground, carrying a dry leaf past Mr. Dalton's shoes. Admiral Ross stood beside him, waiting for something to happen, but nothing changed. The road was empty. No cars slowed down. No strangers appeared. Only silence remained. Inside the diner, people slowly returned to their seats. The danger felt over, but the tension had not fully disappeared. Lily walked back behind the counter, still shaken but breathing easier. The rude man in the suit sat alone now, looking smaller than before, like someone who suddenly understood he was not as powerful as he thought. The 3 older veterans remained near the window. Watching Mr. Dalton through the glass, they spoke quietly among themselves, remembering younger days, remembering a commander who never left his men behind. Outside, Admiral Ross finally broke the silence. Sir, if the man wasn't alone, then where's the rest of the trouble? Mr. Dalton did not answer right away. His eyes scanned the empty road once more, slow and calculated, like someone who had survived by never trusting peace too quickly. But then his shoulders relaxed slightly. It's over, he said. Ross studied his face. How can you be sure? Dalton finally looked at him, not with fear, not with doubt, but with steady certainty. Because cowards send others first, he said. If no one came after him, there is no second plan, Ross exhaled. Allowing himself to believe it, the tension broke. Dalton turned back toward the diner, walking with the same calm, unhurried steps he had used when he first entered. Ross walked beside him, not as a superior officer, but as a man walking next to someone he deeply respected. When they re-entered the diner, the bell above the door chimed again, soft, gentle, like the sound of normal life returning. Every head turned toward them. No one spoke. No one moved. The rude man stood up quickly, his voice nervous. I'm sorry, he said, looking at Lily. I shouldn't have touched you. I was wrong. Lily nodded slowly, accepting the apology. Not because he deserved forgiveness, but because the moment was already finished. There was no reason to carry fear any longer. The man left the diner without another word. The door closed behind him, and the room finally felt safe. The older veterans approached Mr. Dalton carefully. "Sir," one of them said, his voice trembling. "We thought you were gone forever." Dalton gave a small nod. "I needed quiet," he replied. "No explanation. No long story. Just truth." Ross stepped forward. "If you ever want to return," he said softly, "the Navy will welcome you. No questions. No ceremony. Just respect." Dalton looked at him with calm eyes. "I have already served," he said. "Others can lead now." Ross did not argue. He understood. Some men finish their duty long before the world stops needing them. Lily approached with a fresh cup of coffee. "This one is on the house," she said. Smiling gently, Dalton sat at the counter again, just as he did before everything began. He wrapped his hands around the warm cup. His heartbeat returned to its quiet rhythm. The little girl's empty stool remained beside him. No one knew when she left. No one remembered seeing her walk out. Lily looked around slowly. Who was she? She asked. Dalton took a sip of his coffee. Someone who knew help would come. He said nothing more. The diner returned to normal. People talked again, but softer than before. Their eyes held new respect, not for a uniform, but for a man who never asked for recognition. Admiral Ross stopped at the door before leaving. "Thank you, sir," he said. Dalton nodded once. Real heroes did not need applause. They just needed silence. And in that silence, the world finally understood. Some legends never disappear. They simply sit quietly until someone says, "Sir, please help." The end. "Sir, please help." The end.